You're lying in bed. It's somewhere past midnight. The room is dark. Everyone else is asleep. And then, with absolutely no warning, maybe you were almost asleep. Maybe you just finished something on your phone. Your brain does this thing. It reminds you that you're going to die. Not sick, not in danger. Just aware. Suddenly, completely aware. And for about 30 seconds, you feel this strange falling sensation. Like gravity reversed. Like the floor got pulled out from under you. Here's what I want you to understand before this video is over. A version of that falling sensation happened to someone 430,000 years ago. And what they did next changed what it means to be human. Before we go any further, I need to dissolve something you probably believe without knowing you believe it. When most people imagine early humans dealing with death, they picture something like this. Someone dies, the group moves on, maybe they leave the body, maybe they don't even look back, because survival was everything. Grief was a luxury. This feels intuitive. It feels logical. It's also almost entirely wrong. The archaeological record, the actual physical evidence left in caves and soil and rock, tells a completely different story. The story is this. Humans, and the species closest to us, have been doing something complex with their dead for far longer than anyone expected. Not just disposing of bodies, not just avoiding disease, something that required planning, emotion, and an understanding that death was different from sleep. How long ago? You're about to find out. And the number is going to make you rethink the word primitive. In northern Spain, there's a cave system called Atapuerca. Deep inside it, past a vertical shaft that drops about 14 meters, researchers discovered one of the most puzzling collections of human remains ever found. 28 individuals, all different ages, some teenagers, some older adults, mixed together at the bottom of this pit. The initial assumption was a mass death event, a cave-in, a flood, something that killed them all at once. But the evidence didn't support that. There were no signs of a catastrophe, no geological event. The bones showed they died at different times. Someone brought them here, one by one or in small groups, carried them to this shaft and deliberately dropped them in. This is 430,000 years ago. The species isn't even Homo sapiens yet. These are Homo heidelbergensis, our ancestors, but not us. And they were doing something intentional with their dead. The researchers called the pit the Cima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. And for years, the big question was, why this pit? Why carry a body deep into a cave, past difficult terrain, to drop it into a shaft? There's one answer that keeps coming up in the research. This place was chosen because it was hard to reach, because it required effort. And effort, when it comes to the dead, means something. Now, here's the part that stopped archaeologists cold. Among all those bones, 430,000 years old, researchers found one single object that had nothing to do with survival. Not a weapon, not food, not a tool. A hand axe, made from rose-colored quartz. It's beautiful. It was made with care. And it doesn't exist naturally anywhere near that cave. Someone carried it a long distance and placed it with the dead. Here's the thing that nobody has been able to fully answer. Who was that axe for? The dead can't use it. The blade isn't sharp enough to hunt with. So who? Hold that question. Because the answer is going to rewrite what you think a funeral actually is. Let me step back for a moment, because if you think grief is uniquely human, a product of language, of culture, of religion, then you need to hear about the chimpanzees. In 2010, a researcher named Dora Biro at Oxford University documented something that had never been formally studied before. Chimpanzee mothers, when their infants die, don't leave the body. They carry it for weeks, sometimes months, grooming it, sleeping with it, bringing it along as the group moves. Biro documented over 40 separate cases of this behavior across different chimpanzee communities in different countries. The infants are clearly dead. The mothers know something has changed. Their behavior toward the body is different from how they interact with living infants. But they cannot let go. Now think about what this means. The capacity for grief. The thing that makes you sit at someone's funeral, unable to fully believe they're gone. That capacity didn't evolve with humans. It was already there. It was already in the hardware. When you sit with that, it stops being a weakness. It becomes something else entirely. The grief you feel when you lose someone. That's not a malfunction. That's the oldest program still running inside you. Before we go further, I want to ask you something genuinely. Think back, not to when you first heard the word death, but the actual moment it clicked. That you, this specific person, this body, this consciousness is going to stop existing. How old were you when that hit you for real? Drop it in the comments. Because in about 3 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact brain mechanism that switched on in that moment. And the age you answer is going to matter more than you think. In 1960, an archaeologist named Ralph Selecki was excavating a cave in northern Iraq called Shanidar. He found the remains of a Neanderthal, roughly 60,000 to 70,000 years old. But when the soil sample from around the bones was analyzed, something unexpected appeared. Pollen. Dense concentrations of flower pollen from multiple different species. Solecki's conclusion. This Neanderthal had been buried with flowers. Someone gathered blooms, yarrow, groundsel, grape hyacinth, and laid them on the body. When this hit the scientific community, it was electric. Neanderthals grieving. Neanderthals holding funerals. Neanderthals, who we'd spent a century dismissing as brutes, showing evidence of tenderness. Solecki called the site Shanidar 5. His book about it was called Shanidar, the First Flower People. And then, decades later, the dispute began. Other researchers looked at the same evidence and raised a problem. Burrowing rodents, particularly Persian gerbils, are common in that cave system. These animals collect and store plant material. Their tunnels run directly through the sediment around the skeleton. The pollen, some argued, might have been brought in by animals, not people. The debate has never been fully resolved. New analysis continues to this day. But here's what I want you to notice. The debate itself took 60 years. 60 years of some of the smartest scientists in the world arguing about whether an ancient being had the capacity to mourn. Because we need the answer to be yes, not just scientifically, emotionally. We need to know that the impulse to honor the dead, to make death mean something, is ancient, is deep, is not just a modern invention that could disappear. That need is its own kind of evidence. Remember that rose quartz hand axe from 430,000 years ago. I told you the answer would rewrite what you think a funeral is. Here it is. Researchers now believe that axe wasn't placed for the dead, was placed for the living. Think about every funeral you've ever attended, every ritual you've seen, the flowers, the candles, the carefully chosen music, the things placed in the coffin. None of that is for the person who died. It's for the people left behind. It's a way of making something shapeless feel like it has a form, making the unbearable feel like it has a container. And a team spent 40 years debating whether ancient humans had this impulse. What they concluded, not only did ancient humans have it, it may be the single behavior that most defines us as a species. What you do with your grief, the rituals you create or follow, in something civilization invented. It's something 430,000 years old, trying to make loss feel survivable. Now, back to that question I asked you. How old were you when death became real to you? In 1948, a Hungarian psychologist named Maria Nagy interviewed hundreds of children about their understanding of death. What she found was that children go through distinct stages. Before about age 5, death isn't permanent to them. It's like sleep, like going away for a while. Around 5 to 7, something shifts. The concept locks in. Death is irreversible. Death is universal. Death will happen to me. Nagy's work has been replicated and refined dozens of times since. The window is consistent. If your answer was somewhere in that range, 5, 6, 7, you're experiencing exactly what the research predicts. If you are older, it doesn't mean you were slow. It often means you were protected, sheltered from situations that made the reality undeniable. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In the 1980s, 3 psychologists, Jeff Greenberg, Sheldon Solomon, and Tom Pischetsky, developed what they called terror management theory. The idea, awareness of your own death, creates a specific kind of terror, and humans have developed elaborate systems, culture, religion, legacy, meaning specifically to manage that terror. The death awareness you unlocked at age 6 or 7. That's not a trauma. That's the activation of the most powerful motivational force in human behavior. Everything that drives you to build something, to love someone, to leave a mark. Terror management theory says it all flows from the moment you first understood that you would die. Here's the thing. That same activation happened to someone in a cave 430,000 years ago. They didn't have language to name it. They didn't have philosophy to frame it, but they felt it, and they responded. By carrying their dead to a special place, by placing a beautiful, useless object with them, by refusing to let death be nothing. There's one more layer to this. 10,000 years ago, closer to us than to Homo heidelbergensis, people on the Orkney Islands off the coast of Scotland built a burial mound called Maes Howe. Inside, there's a chamber, and every year, on the winter solstice, at exactly the right moment of midday, a beam of sunlight travels down the entrance passage and illuminates the back wall where the dead were placed. The architects of Maes Howe designed this on purpose. Once a year, sunlight touched the dead. Think about what this required. Not just engineering skill, though that's staggering for 5,000 years ago. Required a belief that the dead are still somehow present, that light reaching them matters. The boundary between living and dead is crossable, at least in one direction, at least on one day. Where does that belief come from? Not from religion necessarily. The people who built Maze How may not have had anything we'd recognize as organized religion. It comes from something simpler. The human brain cannot process "this person I knew is simply gone." It's not a philosophical statement. It's a neurological limitation. When someone close to you dies, your brain keeps generating expectations of their presence. You reach for your phone to tell them something. You start to say their name before you remember. For months, sometimes years, George Bonanno at Columbia University found that the full neurological adaptation to loss, the process of your brain actually updating its model of the world, takes on average 13 months. 13 months. The afterlife didn't come from wishful thinking. It came from a brain that couldn't update fast enough. A brain that kept looking for someone who wasn't there. And so people built rooms for them, pointed windows at them, left them food and weapons and rose-colored axes. Not for the dead, for the part of the living brain that couldn't let go yet. And that is still in you, right now, tonight. If you try hard enough, you can probably find someone you've lost that your brain is still looking for. That's not grief being stuck. That's 300,000 years of hardware doing exactly what it was built to do. Let me bring everything together. 430,000 years ago, someone carries a body to a hard-to-reach place and leaves a beautiful, purposeless object with it. 300,000 years ago, our direct ancestors begin wrapping their dead in red ochre, the color of blood, the color of life, before placing them in the ground. 60,000 years ago, a Neanderthal may or may not have been buried with flowers. 60 years later, we're still arguing about it because we need it to be true. 5,000 years ago, people engineer a room so that sunlight reaches the dead once a year. Tonight, you lie in bed after midnight and for 30 seconds feel the floor disappear. These are not separate stories. This is one continuous story. The fear you feel in that midnight moment is the same thing that made someone carry a body deep into a cave. The grief you carry for someone you've lost is the same program a chimpanzee mother ran when she refused to put down her infant. The funerals you've attended, the rituals you've kept, the things you've said over graves, all of it is a 430,000-year-old system doing what it was built to do: make death survivable. You are not broken for being afraid. You are not morbid for thinking about it. You are not alone in the feeling. You are, in fact, exactly what every one of your ancestors was: being that knows it will die and chooses to keep going anyway. Something in this video shifted something for you. Save it. Not for the facts, not because it's useful for a quiz. Save it for the next time that midnight falling sensation shows up. And it will show up. When it does, come back and remember this: you're not malfunctioning, you're not weak, you're not strange. You're running a program that's 430,000 years old, one that has successfully kept every version of you alive long enough to be right here, watching this right now. That program doesn't have a bug. It has a name. It's called being human.